Hello and welcome back to Toledo Aquaponics. This is day 36 and it's moving time. So basically, long story short, I want to be able to get a 275 gallon IBC tote in here. In order to do that, I'm going to have to put it to the left of what was my fish tanks. Well, what still is my fish tank at the moment. Problem is, I don't have the space for it. 4 foot, which is about the smallest dimensions, about 40 inches, still puts it on the other side of my garage door. So I have to shift the whole system over. So what I did was I took a car jack and jacked my whole system up and put little 3/4 inch PVC pipes in under so that way I could roll it. This system as it isn't actually horribly heavy. You're looking at about 50 pounds of grow bed max, and then the weight of the water. So even if I drained all the water out, I should have been able to move the system relatively easily. However, I would have had to cut open one of my tanks and other stuff, which I did anyway. I ended up having to do anyways. But also I have a lot of friction to deal with. Seeing I'm using the full, these are 10 or 12 foot 2x4s, that's completely making contact with the ground the whole way. That's a lot of friction. So even 200 pounds times all that friction is a lot of weight to try to move. So I had to get it up, got it up on rollers, and shifted it over a couple feet. Now the next part is to shift the fish tanks. The problem is, these are 55 gallon barrels. 55 times 2, let's call it 100 gallons. Say they're underloaded a bit. 100 gallons at roughly 10 pounds of gallons, 1,000 pounds of water. Not exactly something I can move, and definitely not something I can move on my own. So right now the system's actually jacked up. I actually have it under a bunch of 2x6s and then a 2x4 on the top because I was going to try to slide it a little bit with the help of this jack. That's not going to work. So what I'm currently doing is draining my swirl filter into here. So I took my secondary, which is one of the reasons I recommend it, my second Active Aqua 550, shoved it into the bottom here and cracked it open full bore. That will unfortunately drain this entire fish tank down to the bottom of that 2-inch pipe that goes out, which is a flaw with this design because typically with a slow you want this as high as possible. If you can, have it above your water level. That way if something goes wrong, you don't drop, your system doesn't drop by a couple inches. However, in order to accommodate my swirl filter design that I wanted to use, this has to be down about a third of the way down the barrel, which means I'm going to lose my top third of water out of here. So this is going to drain most of the water out of the system and into this barrel, which I just cut off literally a minute ago. I cut it off, washed it out real quick, and I'm filling it. The reason my water is this green color is not actually algae, it's actually iron. I topped my system off with iron today. I did 11 grams this morning. And let it kind of cycle through, so that's why my water went from clear to this kind of murky color. My fish will be completely happy with this, honestly. I have my air stone hooked back up. These guys are going to kind of just swim along. They have food, they have everything they need as far as they're concerned, so I'm not too worried about them. I just need to get the weight down as much as possible. I'm not going to be able to, which will bring me down to about 40 gallons of water, which unfortunately still weighs quite a bit, but it's at least enough that I should be able to shimmy it over to the side so that way I can reconnect it to the grow beds. I did disconnect the grow beds just recently, and that is one thing I haven't covered. I will be doing a video on maintenance. One of the reasons I recommend this Union 2-inch ball valve is you can really quickly disconnect it, and so that way I can pull all my runs out. And it makes it really easy to work on it. And then it's suspended by the rope. That's actually those lines that I had the pea plants hooked onto. I suspended them on there. I accidentally actually ripped one of my pea plants out when I was moving this, so I replanted him. He should be fine. But I'm going to have to prop them back up and see how they do. I'm kind of worried about them, actually. But this is kind of where I am. I'm going to fill this until this tank doesn't take it anymore. And then I'm going to see if I can shift it at all. Right now, this whole thing sits on 2x4s. It sits on 6 2x4s, which is fine. But these 2x4s aren't going to take a whole lot of left and right movement. So right now I have it completely off of its legs. It's sitting directly on that jack. And I have another 2x4 there that I can kind of rail against, that I can use as a rail and kind of slide it a little bit. And I'm going to see if I can do that. But I need to, like I said, to get the weight down. This is probably going to be 40 gallons of water times 10 pounds. It's still going to be 400 pounds. But it should be enough that I should be able to move it. If not, I'll go back to my 3¼ inch PVCs and see if I can use those, because those are a much easier method to move across. Right now it's sitting on boards. So 2x4s still have quite a bit of friction, especially the wood on wood. It's not nearly as going to be slippery as a plastic. So if I have to, I'll try putting that under there. But that's kind of where I am today. My entire day is going to be doing this. I will probably hold off on reworking this. What I was going to do was rework my 3/4 inch line here. The reason why is because this little vinyl tubing from Hydrofarm is very thin. It kinks really easy, and that kink doesn't come back out. So what I'm doing is I actually ordered some stronger pipe to actually run this with, and I'm going to do 90 degrees, and I'm also going to put it into T, so I'm going to put in a bypass for the UV clarifier, so that way I can always take the UV clarifier out to be able to clean and work on. I probably won't do that today. I'll do that in probably in a couple days here, or worst case scenario, I'll do it this weekend. But I just wanted to kind of break the camera out. I did take some pictures of me moving the grow beds themselves. I shifted the grow beds over a couple feet. I shifted over by roughly a full, at least 2 feet, if not more. So I'm going to shift it over. I'm going to get the tanks back over there, and then I'm going to measure everything and see how this all lays out, and hopefully everything's good. But right now, this is kind of my life for today. I'm moving my entire system over as much as possible, and see if I can get it shifted. So this is what I was talking about with the water level. As the water level in the main tank goes down, here's where it ends up. I have about another 5 gallons out after this that I'll be able to take out of the system from the swirl filter, which is I'm going to drain and clear out, but it does have a leak. I cracked the plastic when I was putting this together, which isn't actually a problem because nothing can really get through it unless I actually have the system drained like this. So I'm going to probably crack that and drain the rest of the swirl filter as much as possible to kind of go with that, but that's where I am. I'll probably do another video in a little bit after I get everything moved over. Thank you. So here we are. This is a little while later. I'm not exactly sure. I haven't been keeping track of the time. So what I had to do, which is what I said I was going to end up doing, actually the 2x4s worked pretty well. Once I got all the water drained out of that second tank, which I'll show you in a second, it was really easy to move. So I was using this little floor jack here and a bunch of 2x4s and 2x6s, and basically getting this up enough that I could slide it. I had to drain an entire 55-gallon drum and a smidge from here. So this is what the system looks like, completely empty. So here's the swirl filter, drained pretty much as far as it goes. Just to let you know what I was talking about with the fish thing, is this is the design flaw that I have in my system. With that tank completely drained, my water level drops down to there. That's kind of a problem. It drops down, it goes just below the third mark line. So it drops a little over a third when I do that. And that was something that I was aware of when I was designing the system, with having the swirl filter and trying to get all this to work right, that this was going to happen. It's just not something I wanted to deal with. I could have actually probably gotten that pipe up higher and then had it pour down into the top and kind of do, instead of a swirl, do a little bit more of like a radial flow or something. That could have been a possibility, and I was going to play with that. And I will play with that in future designs, because my goal for this system is my primary tank eventually will be the 275-gallon IBC, which I will be there. So I now have more than 5 foot. It's not quite 6 foot of room between here and the back wall. So I will easily be able to get through and put the IBC in here without any real problem. I do have that sticking out, which is a consideration I need to deal with. However, that's also relatively easy to rectify, because I have a little bit of playroom in the design of this that I can actually, if I have to, I can scrap the whole thing. It's just 2-inch pipe. So I can pull that completely out, put a 90 on there, and have that go out and drain out the back if I need to. Right now, I don't need to. I'm not that worried about it, and really all it takes is just for me to drain off a bunch of water to get to this point. It's not the end of the world. I can honestly do it. So I'm not that worried about it right now. The IBC obviously will interfere with that, but I also will be able to scoot these around a little bit. This actually has some play in it because it just kind of sits in here. So if you look, when I move the pipe, it has quite a bit of play. And that translates to, inches of play on the outside. So I will have some play, and as I kind of move this around a little bit, that will change the profile a little bit, and I am going to play with that right now. I'm going to try to get this kind of lined up a little bit better. The other thing is, that's just press fit on there. If you push down on that hard enough, it will separate and you can drain this whole thing. Which is the other reason why I have it at least this high. I wasn't going to put this any lower, because ideally the swirl filter would be even better, a little bit lower, but I didn't want to risk being able to drop any more water in the case something went catastrophically wrong with this tank. So I'm not that worried about it, but right now it'll do. Like I said, my plan was to get the IBCs in here, and then I will probably work this into a common drain system. The other thing is I can push that pipe through a little bit more if I need to, and give me a little bit more room that I can cut off this ball valve and put a 90 on it and run it along the edge here. So I may end up doing that. I am going to clean this out a little bit while I'm here. Mostly just kind of spray it down, especially mainly the swell filter part, and kind of go from there. I will probably try to siphon some of this gunk out of the bottom too. But that's kind of where I am. So I did finally get it moved over. I do have plenty of room, luckily. I'm well over 5 foot, and I only need, like I said, realistically I only need about 40 inches. Yeah, 40, because a IBC tank is 48 by 40 by 46 high. So realistically, I only need for the 275 gallon a 40-inch gap. So I have that plus room, and that was one other thing. I didn't want it right up against my garage door, because when winter comes, I want to be able to potentially pack some insulation around it, and that way I don't have immediately cold air hitting the tank. So that's something else I want to deal with, and that's another reason I want the 275. These 55-gallon tanks are great, but my winters get cold here and they stay cold. So that's something I need to deal with. So that's my update for right now. I'm going to finish putting the system back together. I'm going to finish getting everything plugged back up, and I'll do another update here in a little while. So here we are. Here is the wrap up for day 35. So I made a couple quick changes to the system, besides obviously moving and replumbing everything back in. I swapped out, seeing I already had to deal with moving all my lights, I swapped all my lights out for my unit farm UFOs. So I'm now running 4 identical lights for each grow bed for now. I'm just going to kind of do that to help kick some of these in the butt, because some of these plants are growing a lot better than others. And I want to see if I can get some of that to pick up, as well as I just kind of want to watch for nutrient deficiencies. And the best way to do that is to kind of keep everything even, so that way I know that, hey, it's not that this light's just not getting enough light, it's, hey, there's a nutrient deficiency to deal with. So I moved the entire system over a couple feet to get it to where it is now. Everything's plumbed back in. All the timings are back to where they should be. I do have my top off plumbed in at the moment, just because I want to kind of help boost the levels everywhere, and kind of add a little bit more water. My current pH is about 7.4, which is a bit high. So I will dose that today, to kind of put that back in check. And part of that is a problem because I use RO water. It's not the RO water itself, it's just the water in my area. My water here is 8.0 plus. It's probably closer to 8.8, honestly. So whenever I use any sort of top off water, unless I pH adjust it beforehand, I mess with my pH. So this is kind of where everything is. I'm just getting my water levels back up to where they need to be, because it's not perfect when I drain the system. Some of the water I wasn't able to reclaim. I mean, even like here with even using the sump pump, there's still some water down here, not a ton, but I wasn't able to reclaim everything. So I'm trying to just get all that set back up. But that's kind of my update for today. I have plenty of room now for my IBC tote, as well as, while I had it, I might as well, redid my drain to waste for my swirl filter. So I cut off the valve that was on there, unfortunately, because I had to, because that was cemented in. Put into my 90 degree, ran a little long bit, and then what I actually did here is I put in 2 screw fittings. So that way, and then I put in a NPT 2-inch valve, so that way I can take that valve out if I want to, and then if I want, I can use this to plumb in a like mineralization tank or something else if I want to put a T in here, so that way I just don't have to cut it again. So I have the 90 degree to a long piece to a screw fitting, which this is a double-ended NPT 2-inch valve, and then I actually salvaged the 90 degree that I was using for my drain to waste and just put one of the little one of the NPT to slip fittings on here. So that's my new drain to waste. That way everything's ready to be able to put my tank right here, basically. And then as far as how I'm going to plumb that into the rest of the system, I'll cover that in a later video. But this is my wrapping up video for today. I emptied my propagator completely. I took anything that I had left in here that was viable, that was still big and trying to grow, and transplanted it in here. I pulled out anything that wasn't doing too hot. Most of the stuff was doing pretty good. I put in some of the lemongrass, just because that's one of the ones I had in there. There's a little dude back here that's really not doing too hot. And that's one of the reasons I want to swap out, is I want to know, is that lighting or is that nutrient deficiency? And I'm going. So, and then this is the final grow bed. So this is basically everything going on. Sorry, my dogs are we're playing. So I put in some more, the dwarf pak choi. I put in 3 different ones down here. They're all the same type. I just transplanted them in here. They have a decent amount of light. That basil's still not doing too hot. It's kind of hard to see. But he's got some leaves and decay on him. But he might come back. So I put him under basically a better grow light instead of, this was under those little T5s, which I'm going to leave basically right here. I'm going to use that as the light for the fish, and I'm going to put that on a timer, so that way they have 18-hour daylight cycle, which is exactly what they want. And then I put in one of the plants for my wife, which I'll cover later once that actually is at full size, and she actually knows what it is, so that way she can't sneak onto my channel and figure it out. But that's my update for today. This is my wrap-up. I have everything plumbed in, everything's hooked back up, all my air lines are back up, my water lines are all good, everything's back to where they are. The UV clarifier is working again. I have right now, like I said, my top off is currently plumbed into the system, but my pH is definitely on the high side. So I'm going to dose it again. We'll dose it a little bit today. Ooh, maybe it's lower than I thought. I'm still going to dose it. It's still a little bit higher than I want it. I want it under 7 if I can help. 6.8 to 7 is about where I would like to keep it. I'd like to keep it 6.8, 6.9, somewhere around there. So it's still a little bit high. So I will dose the system today, just to kind of keep things in check, and I'll cover that in my tomorrow video. But here is an overview of the system. 4 unit farm lights, and then I have my 3-foot T5 array. And this is just kind of everything right now. 70% humidity and 73 degrees underneath my grow lights, which is about what I want. And that's actually really not that bad. So, thank you.